So this is the lesson plan for the module Soundtrack in a Movie. We um, we pose the teacher as a facilitator of knowledge, as facilitator of experiential activities. So could you explain me, Christine, what do we mean by facilitator?
Well, we use facilitator to sort of mean that the teacher is kind of a guide instead of a lot of times when you're in an ensemble, the teachers or the conductor kind of just tells you what they want, and uh, it's not very creative for the students. Maybe for the conductor because they're doing what they want, but the students aren't able to do that. So facilitator just sort of helps students figure out what they want. If you're walking by and you maybe sort of as in the workshop where you hear that it's on a 5/7 chord, it needs to go to a
Yeah,
1, but they don't know what that means. And I've had that happen to me before, talking about chords and realizing that they didn't know what I was talking about, and having to sort of break it down a little bit. But being able to sort of connect the dots and connect what they're doing instead of you see that they're having a problem and you can kind of slide in there and say, hey, why don't you try this or this, and they can try those different things out. Or if maybe the student comes up to you and directly asks you, you can sort of give them the path to where to go, but not directly tell them, to kind of let them figure it out for themselves so that
yeah.
they're sort of learning a little bit more that
So
way.
your role is something like you need to give is giving feedback, is to encourage students to try new things. I think this match totally with the idea of possibility thinking, that that you are encouraging the new experiences, the discovering, right or not?
Yeah, it is, and it also, in a way, I feel that maybe sometimes the other students are facilitators as well. I've seen some of the older students working with the younger students and trying to help them and sort of letting them
Oh, the
figure
peer
it out
learning, yeah.
too. And again, that's a great thing to do. I like to let my students work in small groups all the time to do that because not only does it facilitate that environment, but it also allows for the older students to maybe sort of practice sort of teaching because when you teach something you understand it on a different level than before because you're having to thoroughly explain it.
Yeah, and that makes me think you as a teacher, as facilitator, you can bring something. For example, if you taught yesterday or 1 year before or 1 week before, for example, quarter notes or tonic and dominant or something like this, you can remind them, okay, do you remember what we do one week before or the last month, in order to connect what they learned before to the activity of problem solving.
Yeah, it's always great to sort of connect that. I try to do that. A lot of the students I have in my ensembles are in my theory classes, so I try to do that a lot. I'll ask them, "Oh, we just talked about, the G major scale. How many sharps are in that scale?"
Yeah,
And they sort of look at me and then they you can see their brain working and they're trying to remember back how to figure all that information out, and it connects it to actually practically what they're actually doing in the class, and they're playing their instrument, whereas instead of just writing notes down on a page.
yeah. So they are connecting reality with theory. I
Yeah,
for saying something. Okay.
definitely.
So that is the role of the teacher in soundtrack in a movie.
All right, Jacopo. The next part of our lesson plan, it described expressivity competence, and I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Do you remember Michelle Kashuk emphasized the importance to bring more expressivity to the compositional process? So one way that she suggests is the using of relationships of um, ah, the using of what of
You were
the
good. Make it a little something on my screen. You
the
frozen?
use of focusing,
Yeah, focusing's good.
the use of focusing in the relationships between um, most
Yeah, on the relationships that she describes in her musts continuum.
what in her Moss continuum.
Yeah, and then motion, status. Is that status or stasis?
Status.
Status, unity.
Stasis. Stasis.
Stasis.
Stasis.
I think it's stasis.
I don't know.
I think it's stasis because status would be ST. It would just be spelled differently. Stasis. So you want to try that again?
Okay. Yes.
We're still rolling here. Okay. Well, Jacobo, our next part of our lesson plan talks about the expressivity competence, and I was wondering if you could talk to us more about that.
Yeah, and do you remember Michelle Kashup? She emphasized the importance to bring more expressivity to the compositional process. So she suggests the use of her Moss continuum. I mean, the relationship between the contrast of two different situations. For example, the motion and status, the unity and variety, the sound and silence, the tension release, the stability and instability. She says that if you can focus in these relationships, at least one, you can develop more easy a composition instead of saying, okay, let's write a composition in E flat. So you don't have the idea. You don't have the idea what are you looking for. So with these relationships, you can have a guide. In this project, we are looking at uh, a video that involves a magician and a rabbit, and with many body language, with many gestures. So you can find the contrast of motion and status at the sound and silence. So I think this is a good way, and that is why we include these relationships in our model.
I agree. I enjoy the fact that she said that for the younger students, you could just focus on maybe one, but as the students are more advanced, you can focus on many of those things, and this really helps those projects become a little bit less ambiguous for the students, who are especially ones who need a little bit more direction, who aren't comfortable maybe being creative right away. If you can explain some of these sort of this continuum a little bit, they feel a little bit more secure.
Yeah, yes. I think you can develop in an easy way your composition. I mean, this is possibility thinking. I mean, this is just a guide. This is just suggestions. Probably in the future they will choose different relationships or different kind of expression. Um, and you know what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say?
definitely. I mean, I think that for probably they would stick with this much more towards the beginning, but as time progresses, and maybe you give them more of these sort of projects that they'll be able to kind of take their own
Exactly.
ideas and run
Yeah.
with them and feel comfortable within that.
So that is why we include the expressivity components. Thanks.